Tell me if that sun's annoying you. I'll flip around if the sun's annoying you. Talk to me about the audio. I'm actually gonna leave this up on the channel. I'm out of breath because I just drank too much coffee. What's up, what's up, what's up? No, it's good. I got that glow. I'll go like this, dude. I'll go like this. You know, I don't mind leaving this in the channel. You know why? Because now with live streams, they actually have, when you re-watch them, they have the comments popping up, like their live comments, you know what I mean? Big up from Detroit. Shouts to all of you, these brand new headphones. Good to see you, you're glowing. It's the sun on the side. I'm at a new house right now. There's like fake grass on this apartment balcony floor. Shouts to all of you, Toe Vegan. Good to see you all. How many bibs did you take and how many did you wash? First question, boom. I had 2 bibs. I rode one from Adelaide to Melbourne. I rode one from Perth to Melbourne, which was it's about 3,800 kilometers. And then when I was in Melbourne, they were exact same bibs. I got sent 2 pairs. And then I just swapped them over. That was a key move because, you know, I didn't wash them at all for those. I don't know how long it took me to get from Freo to Melbourne, maybe like 8 or 9 days. But they were dirty. Not as dirty as they were the second week. The second week, man, oh dude, you would not like, they needed a radioactive waste bin. They were so disgusting. How do you feel and did you feel after recovery? You know, I felt worse after than I did during the race. I would coin it the same as, you know, when I was training for the race, you know, after a few weeks of like peak fucking training going into it, I'd tape it, you know, and that was kind of a hard you know, that was a hard thing to navigate, tapering, because so how do you taper for a 2-week event? 3, you know, I didn't know how long it was going to take me at the time, but it's like, how do you taper for a 2-week X amount of time event so long? It's not like 1 day, you know, it's not like, so all the advice I was getting for was like a 1 day, 2 day, 3 day stage race. So this is kind of different. So, but it was the same as when I tapered. I remember specifically tapering, and you know, when you're in the rhythm of training and you're tired, but you're just so used to just going out and smashing, you know, doing what you need to do. And then as soon as you relax, you just get hit with this onslaught of fatigue. It was kind of like that, you know. So a few days after, you know, the first day I was destroyed. I was practically disabled. Do you know what I mean? I was shitting my pants. I shat on the fucking bed. You know, I was probably pissing my pants at the same time, waking up sweating, dripping in sweat, shaking. You know, personally for me, I can't speak for other people, but you know, like I did some serious central nervous system damage. You know, like some proper damage, man. You know, shit the bed damage. So the first few days was more physically just being able to move. Like I remember I walked from my hotel in Sydney to Chinatown. It was only like, I was staying, if anyone knows Sydney, I was staying like, you know, that George Street Woolworths? And I was staying on Pitt Street. It probably took me like an hour to walk from Pitt Street to Chinatown. I was holding on to Jess, dude. Like I was almost gonna cry, but she was walking too quick. You know, I had a bubble tea and it spilled on the floor. The stress I felt when this bubble tea spilled on the floor was like way more stress than I felt the whole bike ride. Like the whole bike ride. Like when this bubble tea spilled on the floor, I almost cried. That's how it was crazy. You know, so the first few days I was dealing with all these like this physical central nervous system, like these responses physically, like, you know, I couldn't really walk. I just felt drained, you know. I just felt just emotionally zapped. I felt physically drained. I wasn't as hungry as I expected to be. You know, I thought I'd be more hungry those first few days. I wasn't really that hungry. My stomach was so upset. I wasn't really that hungry. The hunger came later. But now I'm like, no, I'm probably like 11 days. I think I'm like 11 days. Well, it's Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday. I finished on Saturday, Sunday. It's like 12 days. You know, it's hard to know if I'm still feeling it, but I do feel overall like less of a desire to do things, you know, which I'm not really fighting. Like, I'm not really worried, like, I don't want to go ride my bike, like, I don't want to go to the gym, all these kind of things. I'm not really worried about, you know, like, I might be worried about it if it was like 3 months later, you know, but it's still under 2 weeks after. So I still kind of feel like an overall desire to do things less. Like I'm less to move, if that makes any sense. I know I'm jumbling my words a little bit, but you know, now I'm starting to get more deep sleep. The first week was terrible with sleep. You know, I really couldn't sleep. I was waking up multiple times a night. I mean, you've just trained yourself for 2 weeks to really sleep fuck all. So, you know, I was waking up multiple times a night, sweating, doing the, you know, the night sweats and all that kind of stuff. But it's coming around now. You know, I'm having dreams again and just feeling more overall relaxed. How much weight did I lose? I weighed you know, today's the first time I weighed myself, to be honest with you, and I weighed 91.6 kilos, which is quite light for me. When I was training into it, that's how much I weighed. I'm sure I've gained probably 3 or 4 kilos after the race. I'm sure if I weighed myself after the race, I would have been like 86 or 87. But you know, that's depleted, low on glycogen, low on water. And then, you know, I've had like 9 or 10 days to eat. You know, I've been allowing myself to eat as much as I really want. I don't really care. You know, to me, to me, you know, having done diets before and knowing how these things work is like, I would rather put on a bit more weight than dealing with the stress of not putting on weight. Do you know what I mean? And just, you know, when you allow yourself to eat as much as you really want anyway, you end up eating less than you would if you didn't allow yourself to eat as much as you want, and then you sporadically overate, you know? So just juggling those things. But I probably didn't really lose that much weight, man. Maybe a couple kilos, a few kilos. You know, I was eating a lot of food, man. Like a lot of fucking food, man. And after I ate a lot of food too, so. But the goal for me wasn't to lose weight. It wasn't a weight loss project. If it was a weight loss project, you know what I mean? I would just train in the gym and eat less food. What were you thinking when you were riding at that pace on the first day? Great question. You know, I wasn't really thinking much. You know, there was moments where I was thinking this is a pretty quick pace. We had good weather. I'm not gonna. It was great weather, but you know, the start pace was fucking quick, man. At least for me, it was quick. And I've never done anything like this before, so I got no kind of gauge. And that was probably what I suffered from the most. Not suffered from, but which was kind of like, when you have no experience, you have nothing to gauge off. Like you're fatigued or you're going quick, and you don't really know relative to anything else. What, you know, is this too quick? Am I feeling too tired? You know, so we were going pretty quick. I mean, we were on that bike path. Now, I haven't looked at the Strava, but we were on that bike path out of Fremantle when we hit the bike path. And I knew I wanted to get that bike path quickly because it's a short bike path. And, you know, I like to be by myself. I don't like to be with other people. I don't like to be talking, you know, all these kind of things I don't want to do. So I made sure I was on that bike path early. And I knew there were some hills. But we were on that bike path. I swear we were doing like 35, 36. Sometimes we were doing 37 Ks an hour. And I was just with Stefan. We were having a bit of a chat. And I asked him, I said, I remember asking him, I said, Stefan, is this normal to be this quick when you're on the first day? And he was like, it's, you know, sometimes it's quicker. I remember him saying it's quicker usually. And I was like, fuck, man, this is pretty quick. But the pace was really maintained. I mean, I think we did, you know, I had a pretty short day the first day. It wasn't really a short day, but, you know, it was kind of done in 2 sections. It was kind of done in like 14 hours, that first stint. Then I had like a 4 or 5 hour nap, and then I did the rest of it. And I got more riding in before 24 hours had elapsed. So it was over 500 Ks the first day, I'm pretty sure, total. But I mean, I think that first 14 hours, it was like something like 32 and a half. It's probably 32 Ks an hour average for the first like 14 hours with some climbing, you know, so it was pretty quick. But, you know, I've learned better than to assume what's possible. You know, I've learned better than to do that. To me, it's foolish to think that you know what you can do. So if I was having thoughts of saying this is fucking quick, that's where they ended. It wasn't like this is quick, I'm not gonna be able to hold it. It was like this is quick, let's see what happens. And you know, anytime I thought I was brinking on the side of this is too quick, you know, just drank some fluids and ate some food, and you keep going, man, you know. And it was exciting for me anyway, which was helping me pull me through anyway, because, you know, I had just spent months training by myself. So to even have someone by my side, or it was an extra wind at my back, in a sense. So, but it was definitely quick, man. I didn't expect it to be that quick. Serious question, did you hallucinate at all from during the trial? Yeah, I've driven the route before, I've ridden extremely tired before, and it's the same shit. Like, anyone who's experienced driving for prolonged periods of time when you're tired, it's exactly the same thing on a bike, You start seeing the trees, they start looking like cartoon characters, they start moving. You start seeing things in the distance and you're like, nah, that's not what I think it is, that's not a bridge. You get closer and then you realize it's a tree. So, there was plenty of times I did hallucinate. I'm not sure if I think it's like fatigue coupled with the fact that you're trying to stay focused and like you're looking, there's like these bright lights on the road that are reflecting off like, objects, and you're trying to kind of navigate through all of that, and then you just, everything starts playing tricks on you a little bit. But I would stop. I had to stop a couple times, but that was more so just I couldn't really see correctly. Like I felt like, it got to the point where I felt like I was wasting more energy trying to see than when I was riding, and for me that's like, okay, like that's like, okay, now we're just wasting energy here. Let's pull over for half an hour or 20 minutes. And 20-minute nap really, I don't even know how it works, but for some reason a 20-minute nap can literally revitalize your vision, which is insane, because I never nap, but I had to nap twice, and I'm telling you, it saved my life. And it feels primal when you nap on the side of the road. There's something about it, it feels like Bear Grylls. You feel like you're in that's when you feel like you're in a real adventure. When like you can't see, you pull over, you're sleeping on a bench or whatever, and you're just recharging, and then you get up and you go straight away. There's nothing like it. That's probably one of the most enjoyable pieces, is just like having to do that was so fun, man. Did you have any mechanical problems during the race? Yeah, I did. I mean, when I got to Adelaide, my wheels were buckled and they were fractured. Luckily I got my mate Kim, he's a bike mechanic. He had some spare wheels, and we just changed them at his garage/shop. So the wheels were fixed there. And then when I was approaching the back of Foals, it's just a funny story, man. My back tire was fucked. It had some holes in it, and I started getting I got 2 flats, within a short amount of time. And so I was going to change it. I had a tire taped to the top tube, right, with zip ties. I don't think I told anyone this. I had a tire taped to the top tube with zip ties, and I had a little nail clipper, because nail clippers chop zip ties, right? And I'm like trying to get, like, I had my back wheel off, right? But I didn't realize my derailleur had pressure on the floor. So my back wheel was off and the derailleur's like hitting the floor. I didn't realize. And my nail clipper broke. So I started hacking the zip ties off, which was putting hell pressure on the frame, which was putting hell pressure on the derailleur, and I didn't realize. And then I just heard this like boom, and I was like, what the fuck was that? And then I looked on the floor, my derailleur was off, and the screws that screw the hanger onto the frame had gone missing, and I was like, fuck, you know what I mean? So I was talking to my friend on the phone, and he was like, you don't need those screws, you can put it back in the frame. But when I put it back in the frame and secured it with the quick release, the derailleur was heaps bent. So those higher end gears were like not an option. And it was kind of like divine timing, in the sense that it was like, fuck, made it even more of a challenge. It was like, I was approaching the back side of Falls Creek, which is like the first of the steep climbs, and I couldn't use those easy gears in the small chainring. And I had this dude who pulled over and was trying to help me. He was just a random dude who was like a school teacher who had like a toolkit, and he's like, we were like trying to hypothesize what to do, and he was like, whatever you do, don't stand up on the climb. So I was like, fuck, man, I got to do this back side of Falls Creek in like the 24 seated, which was just a wild experience itself. Enjoyable, but apart from that, that's really it. Did I get chafing? No. I mean, one day I didn't have a shower. Yeah. One day I didn't have a shower and I got mad chafing. The one day I didn't have a shower, I got crazy chafing. So you need to have a shower, man. I was having a shower and sleeping naked, and that was really helping me. The airflow of sleeping naked and having a shower, really, just that whole area was like, wasn't a problem for me, except the one day I didn't have a shower, man. My ass was, like, I was burning. That whole area was burning the next day I didn't have a shower, man. I heard that you had some knee issues early on. How did you overcome them? You know, like, my knee issues, I just think my legs was very inflamed. Extremely inflamed. Like, pretty much all the way from my feet to probably, like, my upper thigh was inflamed. Like, if I showed you the side of my knee, like, where my, I can't even describe it to you. Like, it was so fat, man. So fat that, like, suddenly my legs were rubbing on the frame bag and I was getting, like, skin abrasions, and it was just heinous. But I just kept going, you know, and they really just stayed inflamed the whole way, and they were extremely stiff, but there's nothing I really did. Like, it's not like I started stretching. I just kept going. I mean, there's no real sexy answer to it. It was kind of worrying, man, because, like, you know, when you get out of bed and you're kind of like, fuck, I can't really walk, you know, it hurt, I can't, you know, you can barely walk, and then you're trying to understand how you're going to be able to do 18 hours of riding in it today or whatever in a hit. It's kind of like scary, you know what I mean? But for me, that fear was relieved. It's like, I just didn't care, you know what I mean? Like, I was just like telling myself, like, it's not that big of a deal, man. It's not a big deal. You know, I was prepared to lose at any given moment. So I had no fear, because I was ready to leave the race, man. Like, I wasn't ready to leave the race via myself giving up. But if I blew my knee out, tore a hamstring, tore an adductor, tore an ab, tore a fucking neck, tore an ear, any of these things, they didn't faze me. You know what I mean? Because the only thing that phases me is not giving it my best. You know what I mean? So anything outside of that resulted in me not being able to complete the race, I didn't really care. So having inflamed knees and thinking, oh, this could be potentially an injury, was just like, well, it's not an injury until it's an injury, so let's keep going. How bad were the food options? Look pretty wrenched. The food was terrible. You know what I mean? You have to really be out there to experience and understand how terrible the food is. Especially along the desert, it's extremely limited options. And unless you're eating like the most trucker fucking food that's just disgusting, you're going to have troubles, you know? So it probably upset my stomach a bit more than I would like. Shouts to you, Cool Carbon Collected. Looking fresh face, bro. Shouts to you, brother. I've been relaxing, you know? I've probably got a few more days of relaxing in me before I start to reintegrate into normal life, man. Mate, I'm doing a 180k bike ride, 4k meters of climbing. What should I eat and how often? Alberto, you know, there's no real answer for that, man. Everyone's different, you know. What I eat 180k bike ride is going to and 4k vert is going to be completely different to you. It's really relative to your training, your fitness, all these kind of things, how much you ate the day before. I would just take food with you and I'd always urge, you know, veer on the side of not ever getting really hungry. Doesn't mean you need to stuff your face, but, you know, like, if I was going to wake up and do that kind of ride in the morning, like, depending on how quick the bike ride would be, the pace, fresh off the gate, but, you know, I'd eat a big meal the night before, you know, I'd have something in the morning so I'm not empty stomach for such a long bike ride, and just eat throughout, drink throughout, and just make sure that I'm feeling okay, you know what I mean? Sometimes you don't feel okay and it has nothing to do with the food, man. 180k bike ride is a long fucking bike ride, and sometimes you feel crap, it's just because you're not in great shape, you know what I mean? So, but just make sure you eat enough, you know what I mean? What motivated me to do the race? Great question. What motivated me to do the race, you know, personally, I like the challenge. I like the idea of maximizing your potential, personally. Do you know what I mean? You know, and anytime you do something like this, you know, on the personal level, it's maximizing potential. On the other level, it's like, people love it, you know what I mean? And I hate saying it can inspire people, but you fucking can. Do you know what I mean? So the way it makes people feel, the way it makes me feel, and just, you know, anytime you challenge yourself on that level, it's just like the reward is just so, the cost is heavily outweighed by the reward on every front. Like I said, on the personal level, it's outweighed. On the other people level, it's outweighed. Every single level, it's outweighed. So for me, just to put in some effort for 2 weeks to get such a great result is completely worth it. You know what I mean? And when I have a thought and I see something, you know, I can't backstab myself. Like, I remember watching it last year thinking, fuck, I got to do this thing. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, as soon as you have that thought, it's like you can't escape it. You know what I mean? I can't escape it. It's like doing a set of push-ups and having a thought to do one more push-up. You know, I'm not the type of person to have that thought and then not do it. So it just started with one thought saying, I got to try this, that I couldn't turn my back on, really. And it just started from there. But, yeah. Are you going to do any other transcontinental, try any other transcontinental bike? Yeah, I'm not sure. You know, I'm not sure. You know, I enjoy riding my bike. Is it like my fucking absolute love riding my bike? You know, I'm not sure. You know, I love the way it makes me feel. I guess the bike is just like a vehicle to be able to do that. But I'll never say never, man. You know, the experience was so crazy, man. Like, I could easily see myself doing it again. But just knowing what it takes to commit to something like that and to improve off what you've already done is it's such a big commitment, man. You know, it would be like a year-long commitment, at least, to really push into something like that. Have you thought about doing any riding in regards to cycling? No, I never really thought about it. Yeah, I might show you the bike at the end. Well, there's nothing really on it, bro. It's just a stock Trek Madone. I mean, a Trek Amonda. Shouts to you, brother. How do you stay motivated? I don't really stay motivated, man. I don't really... Like, I'm not really motivated. You know what I mean? I kind of dropped the motivation years ago. Because it's just a fleeting... It's just an emotional... It's just emotions, man. It's just fleeting. It just comes and goes, and I just know better than to spend my time trying to get motivated to do things, because it never really lasts long term. So, you know, I would say my drive comes from different things, but they're firmly rooted in things that are really... They're always there. In simple terms, you know what I mean? Like, life drives me, and as long as I'm alive, life is always there. Do you understand what I mean? So, I'm a fan of life, in the sense that it's so out there, man. You know what I mean? Like, that's the main thing that drives me. And that's what forms the why not. Like, okay, my knees hurt, why not? Okay, I'm scared, why not? Let's keep going, you know? Is the undescribable, unfathomable, ununderstandable nature of reality, you know? And that really forms a let's keep trying. You know what I mean? Because, you know, every day you wake up and you just think, how is this even fucking possible? If you can explain to me... Well, I can't explain to you anything about life, really. It's almost like the more you know, you realize the less you know. It's just so far out there. It's just like, fuck, I'm a human being on fucking Earth with the ability to be self-aware, to realize that I know I'm alive and no one knows what's going on, and we're all just trying to make sense of it the best we can. That's really exciting to me, and that really... There's a sense of magic in that. You know what I mean? There's a sense of magic in that, where it just doesn't... It's too out there to seem possible, you know? And that's what drives me. to keep going. I get your idea on motivation and find it super inspiring. But then why ride across? Like I said, Vegan Jam, I mean, shout out to you. It's just, I just had a thought to do it, man. You know, I just had a thought and then I just did it, you know? It's just the idea, it's just the challenge, man. That's just the challenge I wanted to attempt, and that's it. Who's the youngest person to ever complete the Indy Pack? I'm not sure. I mean, I think there was a guy last year who did his, I think his name was Lockie. He was pretty young. There's a guy joining called Henry this year. I'm not sure if he's younger. There's a few dudes this year who are quite young. Was it wild passing the places that you were filming last year? Yeah, it was weird. It was definitely funny, man, coming back to some stories, some places, and being like, oh, I recognize this joint, and we ate here, and Did watching Christoph last year teach you how to go beyond your own belief? Yeah, it did in a sense. I mean, watching Christoph was like watching some Russian serial killer robot ride a bike. It was extremely impressive. You know, it was extremely impressive, and I definitely learned a lot from watching him that I definitely applied to myself along the way. You know, the belief thing is something, you know, it's hard. You have to do that on a personal level, you know what I mean? No one can really show you that. You just have to, do that. But you can see how people's belief of what's possible in a race like this really sets them back, man. Really holds them back, you know? Is the race your proudest accomplishment? Not really. You know, I don't really look at it like, I don't know, man. I don't really view it like that. You know, it's something I'm definitely proud of it, but, you know, I'm proud of a lot of things, man. You know, if I made you smile, I'm equally as proud of that as completing a fucking bike race like this, you know what I mean? So if I chop an onion good, I'm equally as proud of that. Like, it's not something I think like, oh, this is the pinnacle, like this is, like I'm proud of every little moment like that I'm proud of, man. You know what I mean? It's not just the race itself. It seems like 14 days of painful meditation. It's definitely painful. It's definitely painful. It's definitely challenging, man, but it's not, I don't think it was that bad. There was definitely points that were extremely challenging that really test you. But that's the fun of it. That's really the fun of it. Those moments of extreme fucking chaos and challenge where like shit hits the fan within 10 seconds. Like shit will literally hit the fan within 10 seconds. Less. Those moments are like what you work for. Do you know what I mean? You literally work the whole ride, race, whatever you want to call it, personal TT. Those moments are the moments you build to. And they come out of nowhere. They always come with anything you ever do, man. Anything I've ever done, I'm only speaking from my own experience. They literally come at the moments that you expect them not to come. So like, it's not like they come, you know, I rode 23 hours into a headwind on the Nullarbor. That was easy. Relative. That's a moment like on paper you expect to be extremely challenging. It wasn't that challenging compared to other moments I had towards the end of the bike race where you would assume I'm close. That you would be feeling invigorated and you're like, I'm close to finishing this journey, it's going to be easy. Those moments, man, they heavily outweighed anything I experienced at the start, you know. But they were enjoyable, man. Because, I mean, that's essentially what you build to, this like transformational moment that the situation brings out of you. You know what I mean? And it's like, you have to really seize it because it's like, when else, you have to really seize that opportunity because it's like, how many times do you have 13 days of fatigue in your legs and you're just like, toast. You may never be able to do it again, you know? So you have to really seize the opportunity when it presents itself like that. And really, it's almost like a snake rising. The snake's the challenge, and it's like rising and sapping you with its tongue. You know what I mean, man? And you got to be ready to rip the head off the snake metaphorically at any given moment. We're not killing snakes, but you know what I mean? Like, you have to metaphorically be ready to go. How did you combat back pain during the race? I didn't have any back pain. I didn't have any back pain during the race, man. You know, I had more back pain training for the race than I did doing the race. You know, I had a good bike fit. And then I think a lot of back pain has to do with core strength and form. You know, I was real adamant about maintaining decent form on the bike. You know, if anything, when I get more tired, my form gets better. I don't know if that's from training weights, but you know, I was adamant on keeping my form. That's the number one thing I learned when I was looking at Christoph. I was like, man, this guy's got dope composure. I just noticed that these like top dudes have amazing composure. You know, like, so when I was training, like when shit hit the fan in my training, when I felt like, boom, now I'm talking to God right now. The first thing I would do would be make sure, like, okay, is my back in good shape? How's my core? What's my pedaling technique like? So practicing maintaining good composure in my worst moments really helped me on the road, because like when I felt like, oh my God, dude, this is getting extremely challenging, it's almost like when you have a tight body, you have a tight mind. As soon as the body goes, the mind goes. You know what I mean? So as soon as you start flailing on the road and drifting side to side like a maniac, your mind will go with it. You know, because they're just like an extension of each other. So I was real adamant, like as soon as the body feels like it's gone, keep it tight, the mind will stay tight, and you'll be in good shape. So I never really got back pain. Like I said, it's a combination of all things. I mean, I'm sure if you have a strong core, your back won't, they're kind of related. If you have a strong core, your back won't really hurt, and a good bike fit. How much, okay, everyone keeps asking how much weight I've lost, so I'll address it again. You know, I weigh 91.6, 91.6, 91.7. I actually have already forgot the value, but it's in the 91s. You know, I've probably gone up, I guarantee I've gone up 3 or 4 kilos since I finished the race. Just from eating and really not doing anything. You know, I'm probably not going to do anything for another, you know, I've probably allocated 2 weeks of doing fuck all. Just to really rest, you know what I mean? So. Did you ever feel like you're pushing your body too far? Not really. I mean, after you really, in it, you don't really feel like that. After, you do really get the sense that you've really taken it, you really took it to the next level, just because you get hit by a pile of bricks and you think like, damn, dude, I'm really feeling the effort now. But in it, it's not something you worry about. Like, when you're in it, you're not worrying like, am I taking it too far? And realistically, you don't know what too far is. You have no idea what too far is. So, you know, you have to really remain ignorant to the limit, like in the sense that you know, you don't really know what too far is. These are all kind of boundaries. You know, these are all kind of areas you've never walked into in terms of fatigue. So it's like, meh, I'm not sure. How did it feel to be leading the race? It felt cool. Like, if I thought about it, it felt cool. It's not something I really thought about, man, because number one, in a race like this, anything can happen. You can get a flat tire, you can break your fucking bike, you can sleep in, anything can happen. And, you know, I was kind of just sticking to my own schedule, man. I stuck to my own schedule. I stuck to my own pace. You know, I stick to my own pace, man. That's the number one fucking rule, is that I rode my own bike race. And I don't care about any other dude in it. I don't care about what people did last year. I mean, that's the number one thing, man. People like, and that's what I noticed with the whole culture of the thing is, it's like people like gauge you on what happened last year, and they think like, oh, you can't do this, oh, you have no experience, oh, you have no this, and it's just kind of sad to see, man. Like, I had dudes, you know, the dot watchers had more faith in me. You know, everyone had, you know, shouts to everyone who supported, because it's an amazing thing, and I got respect for everyone who supported. But it was just interesting to see how the dot watchers with less experience had more faith in my ability than the people who have done ultra races or do riding. Because the people who do riding ultra races, they have these preconceived perceptions about what's possible, and they're like limited by their own beliefs. You know what I mean? So they're like, oh no, he's going to blow up. Oh no, he can't do that. You know what I mean? But it was almost like the dog watchers, they have no, some of them who have don't have real great experience with bike riding. They were like, fuck, I want to see this dude keep going. Like, he's going to hold it. You know, he's going to hold it. So it was just fascinating to see that dynamic, man. Or they'll be like, you know, I had dudes saying to me like, oh, why are you trying to be like Christoph? They were going that quick that last year. Or like, you're trying to go too quick. Like, those dudes are at the top. Why are you trying to go as quick as them? It's like, that's not even something in my mind. You think, you know, I was thinking in my head, like, do you guys think I'm sitting here thinking, these are the top two? These are the top two. Like, I'm not even allowed to get close because they're the top two. These dudes aren't even a thing in my reality, man. When you're out there, no offense to them, all respect to them and their phenomenal athletic ability, but it's not something I think they've set the standard and you can't even get close to it. And people's perceptions are like, if you get close to it, you're gonna blow up because you're not them. It's like, dude, man, calm down, eh? You know, that's not something I thought about. But I don't even know what question I was answering. You know, that's not something I even thought about. I think that ties back into, I'm just riding my own race. I'm just riding my own race. It has nothing to do with anybody else. You know, you don't got time to think about anybody else, man. You don't got time to think about what he's done, what she's done. You don't have time for that. It's foolish. It's a foolish waste of energy, you know? And in reality, they have nothing to do with you. Like, they're not the ones who are pushing on the pedals. They're not the ones that are going to limit how many Ks you're going to. You have to just worry about yourself, man, because at the end of the day, you're the master of your own blade. Like, you can either stop it or keep going. Yeah, I did get a professional bike fit, man, here in Melbourne. It was so worth it, man. You know, I'm going back to delivering. You know, I was going to go back today, but I feel a bit sus. But I'll go back, you know, in the next week or so. Yo, are there any bike shops looking to sponsor you or anything, Abdullah? No. No, brother. I mean, I don't know why they would. I mean, but no. I'm unreachable, bro. I'm only reachable on YouTube. How can you use Deliveroo as a good training tool? I just think it's just the fact that your legs are still moving. I mean, for me, I definitely did have to transition from going from riding and stopping at traffic lights every 2 minutes but really that transition for me was I just did a couple 1 hour rides a week at the start, which were quite challenging because they were consistently pedaling, but I just built off that. But it's definitely better than doing nothing, you know what I mean? It's definitely better than doing nothing. I honestly wasn't surprised after all that crazy shit you've done. It's more about mentality and anything. Oh, good. Shouts to you, brother. Shouts to you, Kelsey. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it. Anyone look? No, Ron McNeil, no. Did I alter the bike setup much? Not really. No, not really at all. I think I think I had a great bike setup. I didn't really carry much I didn't use. You know what I mean? Luckily, I didn't have to use my multi-tool too much because I didn't really have any dramas. But you know, I came out with a few spare tubes I didn't use. But nah, man. You know, I had an extra battery pack I never used. You know, we're using it at home now. But I had it just in case. It was perfect, man. I had 2 backlights. I just used 2 backlights. I rarely had to charge them. No, it was great. I was happy with the setup, man. What cycling computer did I use during the ride? I had a Garmin eTrex 30. Okay, but I also had a Garmin Edge, the old black and white one. I forgot what it is. Is it 310, 410, 510? I'm not sure. It's the black and white one, the small blue one. I had that, but I threw that away because it was annoying me. And it was kind of screwed anyway. It really wasn't connecting. I've had it for years. But honestly, it's not something I really pay attention to. Like, I don't really like the computer. Like, if I had the choice of the computer, I don't want the computer. Like, the only thing I was looking at was, the only metric I had was speed. And that was even getting annoying sometimes. Like, I had to dim the light down on the Garmin because I don't want to keep looking at the speed. It's not something I want to focus on, you know what I mean? But that first day I had the Garmin, you know, it's telling you distance, it's telling you speed. You know, I'd rather die than have a power meter on the bike. I would never want a power meter on, I couldn't think of anything worse than having 3-second power meter, a 3-second power number metric on the screen while you're trying to go for days. No way. No way. You know what I mean? Yeah, eventually I tossed it, you know what I mean? So it's just too much to think about. Distance, how far I've gone, speed, time, average, all this kind of crap. You know, it's too much, you know. But it was the E-Trex, and it was great for navigation. Honestly, it was sick for navigation, man. For navigation purposes, it was amazing. It really didn't falter on the navigation. What was harder, the training or the execution, mentally challenging wise? I mean, they're both hard. They were both hard. They're both hard in their own element, man. Like, every bit of the training is just as challenging as the race. You know what I mean? You know? They're both challenging, man. You know, those days in training, man, they're challenging. When it's real challenging, man, it's like, oof. But you're just practicing, you know, you're just practicing, you know what I mean? You're practicing the execution, you're practicing the mentality, you're practicing your awareness, you're practicing all these things, you know, putting them into practice on these long bike rides. So that's crucial. Even relaxing is crucial. Even holding back is crucial. All these things are crucial, you know, like these, like the energy placement within the training program before is crucial. These are principles I learned from lifting weights, you know, and they're strongly applied to my training before, in the sense that what I'm talking about is like, when it's time to push, it's time to push. When it's time to relax, it's time to relax. You have to learn how to enjoy every single aspect of it, otherwise you'll just fuck up. Do you know what I mean? So you have to really enjoy that. You have to really be able to appreciate that. And you have to know when it's time to go, and you have to know when it's time not to go. And you have to learn how to remove your emotions from it and step back. Because you're always trying to be the G. You're always trying to be Abdullah. You're always trying to be the sickest bike rider. You're always trying to be the guy who can go the longest, the toughest. But that's not always the what you need to do to improve. So you need to be able to take a step back and look at it critically and think, what do I need to do to improve? Not what I need to do to feel like I destroyed myself when I can't walk and emotionally feel like I'm the coolest dude on the planet. That's not what it's about. It's about, what do I need to do to improve? How do I be smart about my energy? And that takes a level of experience. It takes a level of confidence. It takes a level of all these things combined to be able to structure yourself like that and not die. You know, so those are things that really worked out well in my training program. And then you just execute on those philosophies and those principles. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm not really feeling it today, but I have to go, so you go. There's days where you're feeling it, but you don't need to go, so what's the point? Shouts to you, Vegan Tina. Shouts to you. Yeah, Tanner, they are. They are, brother. You know, and shouts to you, brother Andrew. You know, I did freak out for a little bit, but it wasn't really... It was one of my calm freakouts, you know what I mean? I was a bit worried, but, you know, in the back of my mind, I knew it would be okay. But having Kim there, Kim's so, like, the way he talks and just the instructions, and, like, he's just so calm. He's like, it's going to be okay, you know what I mean? Like, so it really helped calm me down. But it was a moment where I was like, fuck, this is pretty important to me, man. Like, I felt the overwhelming thing, like, has this fucked up? I felt really like, oh my God, this race is really important, you know? But then what calms you down is realizing what's important about it. You know what I mean? It's not important to come first, it's just important to keep going. Shout out to you, Fat Albert. I would have loved to see you, but next time, brother. What was the part of your training regime that you felt helped the most in regards to mental strength? It's a great question. There's plenty of aspects. I mean, you get benefits out of everything, really. I mean, on the bike, off the bike, sitting at home, how you think about training, what you're training for. That's a big thing. When you're out there and you realize, it's not like, for me, I'm never out there thinking I'm training for a bike race. That's not something I think about, because it takes away from the training itself. I'm never out there thinking like, this hill repeat is for the bike race. I don't do that. I'm out there just going, you're just doing the hill repeat, and that's your whole reality is just like that. And there's nothing else beyond that. I don't even know why I said that. I'm not sure what's important to. But a key thing for me specifically for the bike race that really helped me mentally was that I never trained with anybody. I did all my training. I did probably 2 rides. You know, I probably did 5,500 kilometers before the race this year. Between January and the start of the race, probably did 5,500 kilometers. Close to, right? I probably did 2 of those rides with people. And that was important to me because, you know, number one, I like training by myself. I like riding by myself anyway. It's therapeutic. But then also, I didn't want to go from this environment where I was doing like all these, I wanted the kilometers to be specific. I wanted the kilometers to be effective. I wanted them to replicate the situation as much as I could. You know, so riding by myself all those kilometers, it's like I had already done the distance of the race solo. So when I got into the race, it was almost like I was on a group ride. Like that first day was a group ride for me. Just having Stefan next to me was a shock. Because, you know, I had been out there from, you know, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., all sorts of hours, all sorts of locations solo, which really did help, you know, because it wasn't shock. It wasn't like, okay, now I'm gone from chatting and not knowing the sound of my own voice to this is exactly like training. It almost felt like I was on a training ride, literally. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. How useful is caffeine during the Indy Pack, like putting a Band-Aid over a bullet wound? You know, I drank less caffeine on the Indy Pack than I drink in normal life. Like today I've drunk a coffee and a half. On the Indy Pack, I would drink 1 coffee in the morning. I don't know how that even fucking worked. You know, I anticipated that I would have to drink way more caffeine. But it was more so like mentally, for me, in terms of the plan, was like, I was like, if I can do and it was confidence building for me, because I was like, if I can do these big distances at the start, I was doing these pretty big distances relative to my own fitness, right? And I was like, I was doing them on 1 coffee. Usually for me, if I do any ride over like 13 hours, I'm having 2 coffees, man. I've done a 24-hour ride where I've had 3 coffees, you know? So I was like, fuck, man. You know, I can do these long rides with 1 coffee. Like for me, it was like, wow, this is amazing. Because I was thinking in my head, like, okay, on those last 2 days, 3 days, when I start adding more caffeine in, if I really want to, it's going to be transformational. I'm going to have such more fitness. You know, I'm not more fitness, but it's going to give me that superficial boost in energy, you know what I mean, that I need to keep going. And I'm also very wary that, like, once you start adding more caffeine in and you're tired, it makes you even more anxious, man. Like, you don't even get that much benefit. When you're that fatigued and you start drinking coffee, it's like your heart rate goes up, your mind scrambles, and you feel worse. So, but I kept it to 1 coffee until the last 2 days. The last 2 days, I was drinking Coke. Like I think I said in the other live stream, I remember the first day I started drinking more than 1 coffee. I was in Beechworth, you know. And this is a testament to how, when you're that tired, caffeine does fuck all. You know, I was in Beechworth, it was like 1 a.m. I had a coffee at the gas station. I fell asleep 5 hours later in front of a cemetery because I couldn't see. So the coffee really did fuck all. And then after that, I got to Walwa. I drank another coffee. Didn't really do anything. I was still very tired. But luckily for me, I entered Mount Kosciuszko National Park, and it was, when something's so demanding, you don't need coffee because it's so demanding. Your heart rate's my heart rate was so high going through Kosciuszko National Park, climbing up to Cabramurra. It was so physically one of the most challenging points, just because of the nature of the climb. It's so long, man, and it just never ends. You know what I mean? Kosciuszko is it's like a wasteland of just beautiful nature with no one, and just these turns, man, and they turn like this, and then you're like, oh, it's gonna go down, and it just goes up and up and up and up, and you're just thinking, fuck, man, this is pretty crazy. So that kept me awake. I drank a Coke at the top of Cabramurra. I did fuck all too. I was still tired. And that was kind of like the what was happening the day after I finished anyway. I rode from Coombe to Sydney. It was about 530 kilometres. I got to Wollongong, and I was like, boom, I'm like 150 k's away. I'm like, it's time to start drinking the caffeine. It's going to shoot me through to the finish line. You know what I mean? I drank like a litre of Coke. I had to have a nap half an hour later because I couldn't see. Same thing, I couldn't see. I had to have a nap half an hour later in the forest, or an hour later, or whatever. So I think at the start of the race it would have had more of an effect, but maybe it would have set me up worse for the end of the race because I probably could have done more distance at the start with the caffeine. It would have kind of destroyed me by the end of it, in terms of my pace. Did you find you had any moments where you found yourself dozing off on the bike and decided to call it a day? Yeah, I mean, I did. For me, like I said, bro, the biggest thing for me was it wasn't being extremely tired. It was hard because you have to navigate this safety thing, and a large part of you wants to keep going. But when I couldn't see, that's when I was struggling to look, and it felt like I was drifting. That's when I would call it boom. But I only had that 2 or 3 times. I had that 3 times where I had to pull over. Maybe there was more times I should have, but to be honest with you, I didn't. But that's up to the person, man. You start going a bit crazy, man. You start going a bit crazy when you're that tired, or you've been out there for so long. There was a time I remember coming into Melbourne, man, and I was like, I was having a conversation. It almost felt like I was having a conversation with myself, but it's like you've been so out of it for so long, man. It's like, when you have that sound of your voice in your own head and you're having this internal dialogue, it gets to the point where you're so tired where it's like that dialogue, now you start talking to yourself but out loud, but it's not like you're actively talking to yourself, you're talking to yourself. It actually becomes almost like you believe there's someone else having a conversation with you. So I'm writing, I'm like, no, she didn't do that, dude, she didn't do that. And it's not like I know I'm talking to myself, it's almost like I've got someone next to me chatting and I'm chatting back to them. You know what I mean? So it's just next level tiredness. Jess is doing great, bro. Jess is inside, just getting back to work. I lost a noticeable amount of muscle on the Indy Pack, for sure. I'm kind of happy that I had some muscle going to the Indy Pack because I think, it was great for me in the sense that, I honestly felt like there was moments where I was like, all right, now we're just going to burn through some biceps. We'll get you up this next hill. I can't imagine what it would be like being extremely lean and thin and then going to do a race like this. Because I don't think it'd definitely be possible, but it would definitely be more traumatic for your body. At least for me, it's okay, yeah, we're going to burn through this useless bicep or this useless tricep because it's doing fuck all for you right now. And, I think in terms of your body's going to want to hold on to the fat more than it's going to want to hold on to the muscle, you know what I mean? Because the muscle's not protecting your life. The body fat's it's going to save your life. The muscle's not. So there was definitely moments where I can almost guarantee that it was just okay, we're going to save this body fat and we're just going to chew through this dude's upper arm or some stupid shit like that, which was great. And I don't regret it. If anything, if I was going to do anything like this again, I would do more volume on my biceps, just knowing that it's a viable source of fuel when his shit hits the fan. Stay in any hotels and how much you spend on food and drink. You know, I stayed in hotels quite a bit, in motels, hotels, whatever the fuck you want to call them, stays, bars, pubs, whatever they are. They're actually not that expensive relative to the food, man. You know, because if you spend like $80 on a motel, that's not that. You can say it's a lot of money, but relative to the food, man, fuck, man, the food's expensive. Like on the Nullarbor, dude, one Gatorade's like $9. You know, and when you have no appetite, all these drinks like Gatorades, you know, soft drinks, you know, any of these like liquid calories, they become real enticing because you don't really want to eat. You know, and they're so expensive. So you can easily spend $80, $90. You know, I easily spent in some spots like $70 in one fuel stop, in just one stop. You know, so if you're stopping twice or 3 times a day, man, you can easily spend $200 on just food, just the amount of energy to get you over the line. And I guarantee you, you know, I mean that's a critical part of it, because if you don't have enough food, I mean, if you don't have enough energy to go, like it will just destroy you, man. Of course it was worth it. Of course it was worth it. Was it difficult to stop and talk to people interviewing you as a human? You know, it was just it definitely wasn't hard, man, because in perspective of a whole bike ride, it's not really that much time. You know, to dedicate 20 more minutes or half an hour a day extra, which you rarely do, to an interview with somebody, to shake somebody's hand. It's not that much time, man. And for me, it's kind of an illusion to think that time's more wasted than you sitting on your fucking phone scrolling through Instagram at a gas station. You know what I mean? Because that's a part of the race, man. You know, talking to the people who have been supporting it, getting an interview done, shaking the hands, kissing the babies, stuff like that. That's important, you know what I mean? And you feel the energy of these people's support when you're riding, so you really owe them the world. Because in a sense, they help you get through it, man. You know, their overwhelming support for you simply just riding your bike is just like so mind-boggling that it really does help you get through. It's like, there's so much support, dude. And if you did the race, you'd understand what I mean. That like there's so much support that like there's not even a minute where you think of canning the race, because you can't be selfish. It's not about you no more. When you get that so much support, and people are sending you all these messages, and this is not to toot my own horn, but it's just the reality of the matter. When you get so many messages and support, and people saying they're loving watching it, and they're like, keep going, and all this kind of stuff, like, you lose your sense, this whole sense of you doing the race for yourself leaves, and it becomes like a more of a selfless act of just riding, you know what I mean? And you don't, and you're so fortunate, because this idea of not completing leaves you straight away. You don't have this like, I'm going to quit, and you lose the I leaves you, which is such a beautiful feeling, man, because you spend 90% of your time on planet Earth just thinking about your, you know, I. So with that much support, you really, this whole spirit of human nature dissolves. I mean, you dissolve as a person, and it becomes more of a collective movement of just energy riding across the country. That's what feels so great about it, man. You know, because this whole idea of I dissolves, and you just feel so connected to everybody and everything, which is extremely hard to achieve living in an apartment in the CBD. You know what I mean? Like, so that's what's so beautiful about it, you know? Good to see you, Freely. I hope you're well. Where you had to sleep, did you think that you'd sleep half a day rather than a few hours given the fatigue? No, you know, I was really, you're under so much, you're going so much that it's hard, it's not like what you think it is, man. Because you're going so much, it's really hard to sleep anyway. You know, like, you get into a motel or whatever, you eat, you sleep for 3-4 hours, even if you sleep for 5 hours, it's kind of a disrupted sleep, you know what I mean? And you wake up not knowing where you are and kind of a bit stressed out. And I had my alarm set, you know, I would set my alarm, and I'd be talking to my girlfriend before I go to bed. And I'd tell my girlfriend, I'd say like, if you're awake, call me. So my girlfriend would call me, man. You know, like, that's an amazing form of support. Like, my girlfriend would call me and say, wake up. You know, I'd already be awake with my alarm, but it was just like another, like, boom, get up, go. You know, so that really helped. Where do you think you'd place if the heavy hitters participated? I mean, that's a backwards question, because it doesn't really, you can't really, I mean, sounds like you've been asking backwards questions, to be honest with you. But in all honesty, it's an irrelevant question, because even if you compare times, it's irrelevant, because people race for all sorts of things, man. Like, I can't compare my time with Christoph's time because it's a different situation, different scenario. Now, I might have been doing a personal TT across the country. Christoph might have been doing it just wants to win. You know what I mean? So for some people, you just do what you need to do to win. That's it. For me to win, I could have slept a whole day and probably still crossed the line first. But for me, it wasn't about winning. It was a personal and non-personal achievement. You know what I mean? In the sense that I just wanted to test myself. So you can't really compare it with anybody's time because it's irrelevant. Because imagine if I was racing against Christoph, I'm sure it would have looked different. I'm sure his time, under the circumstances of my time, would have looked differently. It would have looked different. You know what I mean? If I almost can guarantee that if I was with Christoph, that his time would be shaved off a day, 2 days, just because he would do what he needed to do to win. Last year, his time was what he needed to do to win under that circumstance. You know, so you can't really compare it. But you know, I was definitely surprised with the speed, when I was comparing it, just because it's fun to compare, even though it's not really, like I said, it doesn't really matter. It's not really, you can't really compare them 100% for 100%. But I was definitely surprised with the performance compared to the performance last year. And I had those moments, man, where like I would be riding through an area and I'd be like, I remember filming this area during the day. And then I would be riding through there at night, like the night before the day I was filming, like, and I would be thinking, this is crazy, man. Because then I would be thinking, like, I'm going through it at the same speed. I'm going through it at the same pace. And that's kind of when I felt like, oh, this performance is way beyond anything I could conceivably think is possible. You know, like I remember like going through and I remember filming Mike was waving at me on this crazy steep hill. And I remember going through there at night thinking like, I remember filming this during the sun, when the sun came up. And I was going through the night before like, thinking like, this is crazy. Like I never thought this would be possible. You know? Like it was just so mind baffling. I had the same thing when I was in Omeo towards Falls Creek. I remember sitting there filming Mike. Christoph was sleeping in the mountain. I remember sitting there filming Mike as he was eating and the sun hadn't came up yet. I was in there eating and the sun hadn't came up yet. Same exact cafe. Sun hadn't came up yet and I was just thinking in my head like, this timing's almost exact. You know what I mean? Like, and that was really like, that really was like, whoa. You know what I mean? Like, wow. Not in like, oh, I'm such an amazing cyclist kind of way, but it was like in a mind-baffling, how can this be possible way, which really helped me keep, which was inspiring to even think about for myself, like just by having the discipline to, just pedal. I was telling my girlfriend before I left, I asked her, I was like, do you think it's as simple as just having the discipline just to ride for that amount of hours? I'm just like, why not? You know what I mean? What else could it be? Boom, boom. Case. V-Spot King. Good to see you, brother. I'll be back soon for some pizza. Uh, were your dot watchers the others or were you dot watching the others, or was it? No, I wasn't really dot watching the others. You know, a part of me was wanting to dot watch the others, and I did it occasionally. And that's just the competitive nature of the eye. It wants to see how it's doing compared to everybody else. But I knew it's a foolish thing to do and waste your energy on. So I really try to limit it. But I did have moments where, like, I checked. And there were moments of, I don't want to say weakness, but there were moments where that eye was taking over. Where, like, you're going to pull over for 2 minutes in the middle of nowhere to check where this other dude is when you know he's far behind you anyway. What's the point? You know what I mean? So I had moments like that, man, but I try to limit them, you know? They definitely came up more the more tired I got, if that makes, you know, sense. You know what I mean? Has the indie pack affected the civilian life of you in general? It didn't really, you can't say it didn't affect it because it's such a crazy fucking experience. And I really wish that everyone would do something like it. Because even though it's not like you're out there thinking, oh my God, this is so enjoyable. I'm having a mad adventure. Even though it is a mad adventure. But it's just such a great experience for everyone everyone needs to really do something like that. If I'm being honest, it's not like I've come back and I've thought like my view on everything has changed. But it's definitely fortified some of my views. It's definitely fortified a lot of my beliefs, just because I felt like I put those beliefs into practice. And they were, kind of solidified by the experience itself. You know what I mean? And I really felt them. It's easy to talk about them in just a normal daily life. But then to really feel the full weight of them under such stress and through that experience and to perform well, really fortified them in my own head, you know what I mean? And these beliefs really shape your reality, you know what I mean? So to have them solidified through an experience like that is really a blessing. And that's all you can really ask for. It's easy to read something, it's easy to think something, but then to put it into practice and firmly be solidified in your mind and to experience them, it forms your reality, man. It becomes a part of what you know, and that becomes what you see, you know what I mean? You experience such beauty, such love, such connection, such support from people. It becomes a part of your repertoire in terms of the way you perceive reality, you know what I mean? It becomes what you know. You know it now because you've experienced it. So when you walk down the street, you see what you know, you see the love, you see the connection between all of you. And it's kind of like fucking funny you think you'd experience that through a bike ride. You know what I mean? But that's what you do experience. And it's just like, it's part of that life resume, man, adding to that experience, you know what I mean? So it's like now when you walk down the street, you don't see this two-dimensional view of reality where it's like me versus you, you versus me. You look cool, I'm fat, you're skinny, you're Arab, I'm Asian, whatever like this. You just walk down, you see this like colorful 10D version of just life itself. Which sounds complicated, but it's extremely simple in the fact that you just have to do stuff to feel that, It's kind of crazy, eh? Let's get back to questions. I'm going to leave this on the channel, I might do a few of them and leave them on the channel. It's just, for me, it's easier to answer questions like this than it is to, set up the camera, list off the questions. It's more organic, you know what I mean? When the people are asking the questions straight up and you don't have to hit record and upload and edit all that bullshit, Did you have moments of euphoria like runner's high? Not really, and I try and limit them. I'm not going to try and shut myself down when I'm feeling like I'm on a high, but, like any high comes at a price, man. It's most of the time. You know what I mean? So, something you're trying to avoid is swinging from one high to one low. And sometimes your high is just the chemical high. It's not like a fucking deep, deep high where you feel in the love. You know what I mean? There's like this high where you feel the love and you can almost be brought to tears from so much love and support. And then there's a high like I just ate 2 blocks of chocolate, drank like a liter of coffee, had a coffee, and the sun setting, and there's just like this chemical emotion going everywhere. That comes at a price, So I'm also just trying to ride for me, it's just like this baseline of just like being okay. That's the kind of spot I want to float in. Just being okay, you know, which is sometimes a hard concept to grasp, man. But it's just more reliable, more neutral. You know, the energy levels are just more consistent. You know what I mean? So I definitely felt the euphoria moments after the event more. What was your self-talk like through the headwinds? You know, I was excited for the headwinds. You know, I was excited for the headwinds. You know, really excited. And I was talking to this. You know, I was staying with Joseph after the race, right before the race, and I was very excited, like, for the headwinds. You know, on that kind of whole race level, which I really was trying to limit myself from viewing at it, but you know, I'm human, and the competitive nature of just being the most sick fucking rider will always come out in you, which I was trying to limit. But you know, I was excited for the headwinds because I knew that from watching the ride last year that the headwinds really separate the whole race. So when the headwinds came, it was kind of an exciting moment for me because I knew that if the race got hard, that I would excel. I would really excel. And that's exactly what happened. I remember having some brutal headwinds. And it's just something, you know, it's just something like, you can't really even think about it because it's like, for me, I had destinations and I wasn't going to change those destinations just because of the wind. Even if it probably took me like 7 or 8 hours, maybe like 20 hours, maybe like 12 or 13 hours cumulative extra to reach these destinations through these, you know, 2 or 3 day headwinds. But I wasn't going to change my destinations. It was just like, I'm just going to ride for longer. So once you get over the fact that you're just going to have to ride for longer, it's not really a big deal. You just deal with it the best you can. So, yeah. And it was quite beautiful, to be honest with you. It was quite beautiful, to be honest with you. Like, I remember I left Eucla. Was it Eucla? No, I left Border Village and I was going to Nullarbor Roadhouse. And I had some crazy headwind. I had just spent the night before, you know, like 200k, the last 200k's from Majura Pass into Border Village, I think it was, in a crazy headwind. Like pitch black headwind, beautiful look up stars. That was challenging. And then the next morning I woke up, the time had been pushed back and I was on the way to Nullarbor Roadhouse. Man, that was tough. That was tough. You know, it's only like a 200k stretch. I think it's only like 100, not even 200k's. It might be like 170k, 180k. It might be 150. I'm not even sure. You know what I mean? It's probably less than what I think it is now because it felt sometimes brutal at the time. But it's like this iconic stretch of road. And like, you know what I mean? The headwind was kind of nice, man, because it forces you to just like appreciate what's happening. You know, either way, you know, you got to know better. Either way, it's going to suck the amount it's going to suck. Like, even if you're going 35k's an hour, you're still going to be out there for so many hours. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something you even think about because you think, like, when you sit back and critically think about it, you're like, bro, I'm still going to be riding like 19 hours today, regardless. Like, what is the difference between riding 18 hours and riding 24 hours? Like, at that point, you're just like, it doesn't even matter no more. It's not going to really, it's still such a long event. But it was nice, man. You know what I mean? The sun was setting. I'm on this like iconic road that's like extremely flat and like wastelandish. And it's just like nice, man. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to, you got to be a fool to not look around at that point and think like, fuck, dude. And I was like TTing at the same time. Like, I was riding pretty hard, man. Like, I was doing like maybe 21k's into this headwind, and that was taking it out of me. Like, I was doing some serious power for me. And that was just an exciting moment, man. You know, like, you're TTing into the sunset, and like, it's just like wasteland, flat road, and like, you know, it just feels primal, man. You know, like, that's exciting. I would definitely do it again. I would definitely do it again. For sure. 100%. Did I get scared in the outback? No. I probably got more scared in the forest at times than I did in the outback. And I was really lucky in terms of getting scared in the outback. I didn't really experience any fear in the outback. There's nothing really out there, man. You know what I mean? Did I learn anything new about myself? Of course. I mean, it's kind of hard to decipher in one video, like, you know, but I did learn a lot, man, on a personal level. I just like, you know, you're constantly learning that your ideas of like that's the biggest take home for me. The biggest take home for me is like, what you think is possible is like 95% less than what's actually possible. Especially in terms of just like this idea of just continuously going. This isn't like a FTP where it's like, if I said my FTP was 600, like that's pretty impossible. You know what I mean? Like, that's obviously not feasible. You know, but in this game of just like continuously going at this speed or whatever for a prolonged period of time and living off minimal sleep than what you would usually do is always like a big take home for me is that what you can conceivably perceive to be a realistic amount is always less than what's actually doable. Just in terms of the nature of trying to establish what's reasonable, it doesn't work. It's always going to be less. Do you know what I mean? It's by the mind's nature, it's going to be less. You know, and that was really driven home for me across the whole ride. Was it's like anytime you fucking sit there and you try and think, what can I do today? It's always like 95 fucking, not 95, okay? Maybe if you're some sensei fucking guru, fully trained, mentally sharp dude, it's going to be, you know, you're going to get pretty close. But there's still a gap. There's still this area of just like beyond mind, where it's like, it will never give you an accurate thought of what's possible. You know, so understanding the nature of those thoughts and how they're always going to limit you is something that was driven home for me. You know, so it's better off just, you know, on a practical level, not trying to make everything sound so complicated. You just don't think about it. You know what I mean? That's like literally, that whole response is just literally like, you don't think about it. Because there's no point in thinking about it. And you really can't believe anything. You really can't, for most people it's a shock. Man, I'm going to block this little child, man. You're a child, dude. You really can't believe anything your mind tells you. Well, you can, but you can't. You have to take it with a grain of salt, you know what I mean? In every situation. Especially out there. Like, you got to be a fool. You got to be a fool to think that what your head is telling you out there is true. You know what I mean? Because it's literally not. It's so circumstance dependent. You know what I mean? Like, and the circumstance out there is survival. So of course your mind is going to say, it's going to shut you down at any possible crack. It's going to use that crack and shut you down. So it's not the idea of not letting it trying to shut you down. It's just the idea of understanding that it's always going to shut you down. So it doesn't matter if it's trying to shut you down. It's irrelevant. It's going to do that anyway. Even if you're like the toughest, meditate for 10 hours, it's still going to shut you down. But you can still go when it's trying to shut you down. It's just like, you just go anyway. I hope that made sense. Did you say how many Ks you were doing in a day, or was it certain towns you aimed for? Yeah, well, you know, I had towns. You know, I had a plan, man. I had a plan, but I was ready to throw out before I even talk about my plan. You know, I was ready to throw out the plan if I had to throw out the plan, and I almost did throw out the plan on the first day. The first day I didn't reach where I was planning to reach, but I made up for it anyway later. But yeah, I had a little bookmark, a little fucking plan, and it was telling me, you know, it would say like I didn't do it in days. I did it more in stages. Just from observing last year, I just realised that days are they're almost like an amateur thing to think in terms of a day. And I thought that if I thought about the race in terms of days and hours, it would hold me back. So, you know, I kind of had it in stages. And it was just like stage 2, you know, this place to that place. It would say the distance, like it might say like 550 kilometers or stage 2 might be 530 kilometers. It would say, you know, the town, you know, it would say the hypothetical or the planned stops in between. You know, it would say the planned stops in between. Like, it would say, you know, it's 100, it would say first stop is 180k, or first stop's 200k's from my leaving location. And then it would say the next stop is, you know, that was kind of the theme of it. Like the first stop would be around the amount of, it would, you know, especially the first few days, those first stops were seemingly quite far, but it might be like, okay, it's 200k's away to your first stop. And so you have to ride 200k's until you stop for the first time. And that was kind of around the distance that I had been training at, or amount of hours that I'd been training at in single rides. You know, so I was familiar with doing 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, not 11, but 7, 8, 9, 10. I was familiar with doing, you know, quite consistently 7, 8, 9, 10 hour rides without stopping other than to take a piss. And that was a confidence thing for me, because it was like, I know I can go ride 9 hours right now with what I have on the bike and not need to get any extra food. And then I would make my first stop, and that was the theme of it. And those distances got shorter as the day was, or I got closer to the stops, you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't do 200 break, 200 break. It might have been like 200 break, 120 break, 90 break, and then do the last stint, you know what I mean? So, shout out to you, Kelsey, I really appreciate it. I mean, you know, I've received so much help from other people with any kind of sport I've done, and, you know, what's the point in not sharing, you know, what I feel is valuable, you know what I mean? Because I might be able to help somebody else. And I mean, it's really a pleasure to be able to share it with you. It's a blessing for me in the sense that, like, I'm glad that I was given the opportunity to do the bike ride and do well enough to where, like, you even want to hear my advice. Do you know what I mean? That's a privileged spot to be in. And I mean, it's almost like a great result for the race in the sense that people actually want to hear it. You know what I mean? Can you describe what it's like between spectating last year and competing last year? I mean, spectating obviously is physically an easier thing to do than compete. You know, there's no real, you can't really compare them. You know what I mean? You can't really compare them because they're so polar opposites. Like watching someone do something and doing it yourself is completely different. You know? You can't really compare the two. But you can learn a lot about the race just watching. You know what I mean? You know? I mean, I wish there was more content of the ride, because you'd probably be able to learn more about how to do something like this if there was more content of the riders doing the ride, because, you know, like everyone has a different approach, and you can just like dissect things like on for your own self. Like you can just dissect so much information like of some of these riders, man. And just like, it's like anything, man, you know what I mean? Like you can just like cherry pick little bits of information from people to apply them to yourself. And it can really just transform your performance. You know what I mean? I mean, that's definitely what I did. What did I learn from last year? Oh man, I mean, this is a common question. Shouts to you, but you know, I learned a lot. I learned a lot. You know, it's really hard to boil it down to one thing. I don't know, man. It just seemed like the dudes at the top, like, it just seemed like when I was specifically watching Mike and Christoph very intimately, and it just seemed like they had a firm fucking. It just seemed like they were there to ride. I don't know why, but it just seemed like they, you know what I mean? Like that wasn't they were there to ride their bikes, you know what I mean? Like, and they loved riding their bikes, and it was almost less of a monumental epic thing for them than it was for everybody else. Like to them, it was just like this, like, I'm just here doing what I love, riding my bike. It's not a big deal. You know what I mean? We're just riding our bikes. You know what I mean? And that was really, you know, you know, like that's cool to see. You see people further back thinking it's more epic than it actually. Well, it's epic. I don't know how to explain it to you, but it's just like they just had this real chill approach. You know what I mean? Seemingly unaware of how epic the event actually fucking is. That's what it was like. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I've just ridden like 2,000k. And it's not like he's trying to be like overly humble. It's just like, it just seemed like in his mind, it was literally just 2,000k. Like it was literally that's all it was. You know what I mean? You know, so that definitely helped me because I never was really out there like trying to like think about how epic what was taking place was happening. I was just like, let's get to, like, I'm riding to breakfast, you know what I mean? Or like I'd get to breakfast and I'd be like, all right, now it's time to ride to lunch or just ride for the sake of riding, you know, like, and that really helps, man. Because it's not like you want to be out there and you're thinking like, I'm doing the most epic event, man. It's like this amount of kilometers. I'm on day this, I'm on day that, and no, I couldn't do that. It's too overwhelming, you know what I mean? It's just too overwhelming to do something like that. Have I got any injuries from the race? Nah, man. Except a fucking big appetite. Could you understand what some riders didn't want anyone around them? You know, it's definitely... I can definitely understand why people wouldn't want people around them in their worst moments, you know, in their really, like, tired moments. You know, but even in my tired moments, man, you know, I even had some people in my worst moments, man, like, around me, like... I mean, you're more quiet than you would be usually, like, hanging around somebody, but... Like I said, man, like, you kind of just toss yourself aside anyway. It's not really about you anymore. You know what I mean? If someone wants to chat, like, they've come all the way to chat, like, you just do your best to chat because, you don't, it's not really about you. You know? You have to kind of toss that aside, like... So... Obviously, it would have been challenging having someone film, just because you kind of, like, it's just to... You know, when you're low on energy, just dealing with yourself is enough. You know, so it's just like, you get so used to just dealing with your own thoughts, your own body, your own bike, and then to have something else thrown into it becomes a bit, even the smallest thing becomes challenging, man. So it's definitely a challenge, but, you know, it's almost a part of your duty to, you know, to do those things, in a sense. It's not like a requirement, but, I mean, who would you be if someone wanted to come take a photo with you or someone wanted to ride with you and you were just like, nah, fuck off, dude, I'm tired. You know, you'd be an arse, man. It defeats the whole purpose of it. To what extent did shoes and clothing matter? I mean, it matters, you know, it matters a lot, but it just depends in relation to what, though. Like, does it matter as much as your willingness to keep riding? No. But, you know, obviously it matters, like, in keeping warm and being comfortable as you can be. You know, it's hard to, like, because you're always negotiating, like, how much space you have, how much room you have, and how much gear you're going to take. You know, you're trying to find a balance between that. You know, so But you just try and take as much gear as you can for your setup to keep you as comfortable as you can be. You know, but I bought a jumper and new gloves halfway before I went into the mountains. I mean, it was still cold. Obviously, it could have been way colder. I was quite lucky with the weather. I wouldn't even say lucky, man. I was just in a good position with the weather. You know, like if my positioning was worse, I would have got worse weather relative to the weather that was taking place around that time. So there is elements of like just being in a good position. But yeah, man. You know, I had good enough clothing to keep me warm enough to keep riding, and my shoes were good shoes. I mean, my feet were still uncomfortable. And stuff like that. Did I have to use the bivvy? Yeah, I had to use the bivvy twice. The emergency bivvy. It's not really a bivvy. It's like an emergency parachute blanket. But it potentially saved my life. And it kept me warm. Like, you know, like you're sweating that thing, man. I had one time I woke up huffing and puffing, like dripping and sweating that thing, like, and I was like, dude, I got to get out of here. You know, like, so, you know, it's definitely a useful piece of. I didn't plan on sleeping in that thing anyway, but I'm happy that I didn't throw it away because there was times those few times I needed it were critical pieces. So if I was ever going to do anything like this again, I guarantee, you know, the emergency bivvy is like. I wouldn't take any bivvy, but I would take the emergency bivvy, just because it's so. You do have emergencies, man. Even though you think you're not going to have an emergency, there is moments where you're like, I'm in an emergency right now. I need to use it, you know. So, but it's not something you pull over on the side of the street and you think I'm going to sleep 5 hours comfortably in this thing. You know, you're sleeping on barks and shit and you know, there's all sorts of animals around you, and it's just like, man. I didn't ride Thomas's bike. I rode a Trek, a Monda. I bought I don't know, I think it's 2016. Yeah, this video is staying up. You know, I'm going to do probably a 2-part, maybe 3-part Q&A, and then I think I'll be sick of talking about it. And then I'll leave them up on the channel, man. You know? I'll probably get 2 more videos before I get I'm like, fuck, I'm over talking about this shit. Let's move on, you know? Answer, pleasure to see you, brother. I'm well, man. But we won't get sick of you. Yeah, I know. No, it's cool, man. It's cool to do something and talk about it and then move on, you know? Mob Deep didn't get me through any of the struggle parts. I listened to Mob Deep on the way, but I'm not going to listen to no Hell on Earth. No, I'm not going to listen to no Mob Deep when I'm struggling, man. I'll tell you that. I'm not going to listen. I don't listen, you know. That's the golden rule, is that when shit hits the fan, you don't listen to music. Because music ain't going to save you. Only you can save you. So you have to ditch the music. As soon as it gets tough, man, it's like, boom. Headphones have to come out. Because you just got to fucking face it. You know what I mean? You got to face it. No music, man. I got 10% battery, so I'm going to answer a couple last questions. That's it. What were your thoughts in your mind when you were on cruise control? Or were you on cruise control? You know, I thought about everything and anything I wanted to think about. You know, sometimes my mind would... It's so long, man. It's like so long, and, you know... You just drift in and out of focus, and you're drifting in and out of certain thoughts, and sometimes you have the energy to be able to focus completely for a whole day. Some days you're in more of like a fucking fog, and you can't really focus, and you're really feeling every single kilometer. You know what I mean? You're really feeling every single kilometer. So, but you know, you just go with it, bro. I mean, and that's the simple answer. You just literally go with it. If you're able to channel the focus and get in and do that, then that's great. If you're not able to do that, then it's still great. If your mind's gone crazy, it's great. It's just like, it's irrelevant to a certain degree. Obviously, you train your best to be able to tame your monkey that's inside of your brain and focus as much as you can. But as soon as it becomes unchained for a bit, you can't really do anything about it. You know, eventually you'll get to the point where you'll waste more energy trying to tame it than you would just letting it be and keep going. You know, so you're negotiating that energy balance between trying to focus and then, okay, now trying to focus is I'm wasting too much energy. There's no point, you know? One more question, and then we'll cruise. This is the last question. What was more difficult, the Nile or the Alps? Hands down, the Alps. And not because I'm worse at climbing. I love climbing. I prefer climbing than being on the flat. Oddly, being a heavier person. But I do love climbing, man. But the fatigue's hard to escape at that point. You know what I mean? I probably didn't have a big enough cassette on the back. Would I go back in time and change it? No. Because I like, you know, the sadistic part of me loves that, the struggle of having less gears. You know, there's nothing you can do about it other than just fucking go. You know, and that's why I really like that. I don't like the idea of just continuously shifting down. It's just, it's nice to attempt to shift and have nothing to shift into and think, okay, we just have to try harder now. You know, like, but maybe next time I would have a few more gears. But, you know, your legs are zapped. That's kind of like when you hit those Alps, that's the first time you really do feel the fatigue. Because the power by the nature of just gravity goes up because you're going uphill. You know what I mean? And you really feel the fatigue in the legs. That's when you start to feel it, and that's when it's kind of hard to escape the idea of, oh, I've been on this bike now for like almost 2 weeks. You know, because you're going up and you're just really consistently confronted by this fatigue, and you're just like, dude, this is, like, it's hard to really know how hard, like, there's that climb to Cabramatta, right? And it's really hard to actually, unless I go back there fully fresh, I don't think I'll ever know how hard that climb really is when you're fresh. But I can tell you when you're like, and especially from everyone I've heard who's gone over it, they say that climb to Cabramatta is way worse than anything before it. You know what I mean? Because it's just like so much fatigue in the legs, man. Just your power is just like, it's hard to explain, but it's like, you know, when you're fatigued, man, you have like that ability just to keep on going is like diminished. Like, you know, when you have mad energy, it's like, okay, you kind of hit this portion of fatigue when you're doing an effort, but you can kind of sustain it. Going up those climbs is like, your first, like, if we were to break it down into like a 2-minute segment, usually, like, you know, that within like 20 or 30 seconds, you go from like, I'm holding decent power to like, boom, you just like dive down and there's nothing left to hold on anymore. And you're just like, dude, like, how am I going to sustain this now? Start zigzagging and just like looking at the floor, you know, you just look at the white line, man. If in doubt, you just count the pedal strokes and look at the white line. That's it. You know, I'm going to have 2 more parts of this Q&A coming up soon. I'm going to leave them on YouTube. Shouts to all of you. Have a great day. How do I stop this thing?